This will unlock the Cavs some big free agent centers who I think Koby Altman and company should be on the lookout for. We're going to talk about one in particular in today's video who I believe will make a difference for next season. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Cavs Digest. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm your host for today, Darayus Sethna. Before we get into today's video, make sure you like this video and subscribe to the Cavs Digest YouTube channel. We always love getting your input, what you have to say, your thoughts on the Cleveland Cavaliers. And with Summer League coming up, we have a lot of stuff going on as well here on the channel. So glad you're with us today. I want to get into it with who I think the Cavs need to go for. Free agency kind of still going in the NBA. It's July, it's slow. Really the only thing we have looking forward to in the basketball world really is the Summer League. But I want to talk about one person in particular who I think needs to be in this photo for next season. Obviously, Jarrett Allen on the right, the starting center for the Cleveland Cavaliers, pretty obvious, right? But then to the left is Tristan Thompson, and Cavs fans know him for his heroic efforts, kind of in the LeBron era from 2015 to 2018, was the starting center, played a huge role in the 2016 championship team. But let's face it, he's a veteran player now. He doesn't have what he used to have anymore. And that's normal for pretty much every NBA player at this point in time not named LeBron James, right? So Tristan Thompson, we got to be honest here. We need to call this out. He's not a backup center. He cannot be the backup center for the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a team that is ready to contend. I think Tristan Thompson should still be on the roster. Just to clarify, I think it's a fantastic leadership presence. All the guys, especially the younger guys, look up to him, especially for that mentorship, that encouragement. So he should be on the roster for sure, but not as the backup center. I think the Cavs need to go out and get this guy as their backup center. Thomas Bryant, who is coming off a fantastic run with the Indiana Pacers. I'm primarily looking at him for the Cavs' backup center needs. I think Thomas Bryant, too, just needs to find a long-term home. This is a backup center who's kind of just been known for being a journeyman, just bouncing around different teams, not really having a solidified home base in the NBA. So I think Thomas Bryant needs to find a long-term home, and I believe Cleveland, Ohio is the place for him. I'll tell you why here as well. Thomas Bryant, played in his NBA career so far, has played for the Lakers, the Wizards, and was on the Miami Heat for a brief stint before going to Indianapolis to play with the Pacers. And in this past season for the Pacers, he averaged about 7 points per game, and these were numbers that stood out to me. 83% from the free throw line as a center, 32% from three. So he gives you that offense, particularly that shooting. Also came in averaging about 4 rebounds per game. So Thomas Bryant is certainly more of an offensive-based center who is going to play the perimeter, but can also play inside. We saw in this finals run this past postseason with Indiana, he can give them some good minutes, especially he was backing up Miles Turner. Miles Turner couldn't play all 48 minutes, right? So Thomas Bryant, there were times in the series he would come in and just hit shots, play good defense, and that's exactly what the Cavs need. Going into a little bit more with Thomas Bryant's stats here, as I said, when you look down all of these stats, this list, these are the stats that are perfect for a backup center for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Gives you that 7 to 8 points per game, right? I mentioned the 4 rebounds, but to me it really is the shooting. Look at that second to last one. 51% field goal percentage and about 33% from three. That's 32, 33% what I mentioned earlier. So this is perfect for the Cavs because Jarrett Allen, as we know, is more of a prototypical center. It's going to get the boards, going to block shots, going to get all of his shots in the paint, wide open dunks, right? Is consistently one of the league leaders in field goal percentage. But I think Thomas Bryant brings that different element, like I said, of the shooting, spreading the floor. And I think that's going to be great if he's coming off the bench with guys like Sam Merrill, DeAndre Hunter. That's just going to give another punch to this Cavs offense that I don't think they had with them last season. So kind of going back here into Thomas Bryant, it gives the Cavs shooting. Like I said, it also gives them that toughness. What I liked about Thomas Bryant watching him in the 2025 playoffs is that he wasn't afraid to guard pretty much anybody. He was, clapping his hands. He was playing defense. I will say, there were moments where he would commit kind of these silly fouls that didn't need to be committed. We even saw Rick Carlisle would bench him for a few games in the playoffs and then bring him back. I remember it was between like him and Tony Bradley that were getting those backup minutes. But so there were games that Thomas Bryant didn't play in. And again, it's because, maybe the decision making when it came to fouling wasn't always the best. But what I think that negates that, if you were to come to the Cavs, is the fact that the Cavs roster is so deep. We talk about it. Now at the addition of Lonzo Ball. Let's see what Tyrese Proctor can do. Talked about Jalen Tyson last week. Sam Merrill, we talked about him last week. The list kind of goes on here with that Cavs depth. So I think that they're in really good shape. So even if there were a game where Thomas Bryant were to get into foul trouble, I do think the Cavs' depth could negate that. But I think the positives outweigh the negatives in terms of the offense that he brings to the table. So I think this is a perfect match for the Cleveland Cavaliers. This is a guy that gives you the offense, he gives you the tenacity on defense, and he's going to be someone who spreads the floor. So if I'm Koby Altman, this is the guy I'm looking at to target in free agency. Aside from watching the Summer League and seeing how the young prospects do, I'm also looking to see what can I give up or how can I acquire Thomas Bryant in free agency and bring him on board for the 2025-26 campaign. So when I was also doing my research, I did, I was thinking of a list of backup centers, and two really came to mind. One, of course, the top priority was Thomas Bryant. The second one was this guy, Bismack Biyombo. And you're probably thinking, Darayus, that's ridiculous. Bismack Biyombo, I mean, he's been in the league forever. He's also, like Thomas Bryant, a journeyman, and he's not really a scorer at all, right? Bismack Biyombo this past season averaged 5 points per game and about six rebounds per game. But when I did a little more digging and did a little more research, I think what Bismack Biyombo can do is what Thomas Bryant can't do. And that's really have more of an emphasis on the defensive end of the floor. I would say Bismack Biyombo is kind of my wild card pick. Kind of, if I couldn't have Thomas Bryant as the backup center, this is who I'd have. I just think Bismack Biyombo, again, it's more that leadership, that veteran presence, but I also think he's still got some game left in him. Like I said, 5 points per game, that's what you need. You need the emphasis on the defense, really, and I think Bismack Biyombo can give you that. Like I said, I do believe Thomas Bryant does give you more, a lot more actually, on the offensive side of the ball. I think he'll obviously spread the floor out more. But but let's say Indiana re-signs him because he should be on the market. He's a solid, kind of that prototypical center that you're looking for in the NBA now. So let's say if it doesn't work out with Cleveland, I think Bismack Biyombo is kind of an underrated signing, in my opinion. I would feel good about this signing, more specifically for the defensive end, because we do know the Cavs have a lot of offensive firepower. I think Thomas Bryant would add to that and elevate it, but I don't think that he would elevate it on the defensive end of the floor. I think Bismack Biyombo could do that. So kind of my wild card pick there, but what are your thoughts on the backup center position for the Cavs? There's obviously a lot to debate. We talked about Bismack Biyombo, but really I think it's got to be Thomas Bryant. He's the guy who I think is going to change how the Cavs play with that second unit, how Kenny Atkinson utilizes that second unit. Like I said, really the main con with Thomas Bryant is the foul trouble. Maybe that decision making isn't always the best, but I think the Cavs roster is so well built that it really negates some of those issues. So what are your thoughts about Thomas Bryant? Do you prefer him or do you prefer Bismack Biyombo? Or is there another backup center name who's a free agent that I didn't mention? Make sure you let me know in the comments below because I love to hear what you have to say. We'll be back soon with another episode right here on Cavs Digest. Thanks so much for joining me today. Like I said, I'm your host, Darayus Sethna, and we'll see you soon for more Cavs news. Thanks, everybody.